I'm Connor Petrey. I'm with Cinefied.com. It's fantastic to get a chance to speak to you. I watched the film the other day, and I love a good survival film, and so I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Well, I mean, what can you ask for? I mean, you got just gloomy water with a shark looming underneath. I mean, what could be more frightening? So,
Yeah, Japanese Zeros strafing from above,
oh yeah.
explosions and machine gun fire. Like the way I try to structure my films is to just throw everything in and the kitchen sink and just hope for the best.
Well, I mean, it definitely worked out here because I mean, you just had me just like, what's going to happen next? Because I definitely did not expect
Fantastic.
the planes to come down and fire. I mean, I knew it was a possibility, but then the shark comes into the picture, and you're like, I don't think that's going to happen, you know? So, uh,
Yeah, oh, it was really good to hear that, because when it's like, it's like 70 minutes of just seven guys trapped on a raft. It's like, oh man, I hope we pull this off, and you got to keep things happening a lot. Otherwise, it's just dudes sitting around.
yeah.
So yeah, we worked hard to keep the entertainment factor up.
So, as a writer and director of this project, what are the large influences that went into making this? Like, where did this idea come from?
Well, I mean, a couple of years ago, my producer just called me up and he goes, "Oh, have you got anything set on water?" And I'm like, "No, why?" And he goes, "Well, I've got access to a tank. Can you write something set on water?" And I'm just like, "That sounds like a shark film." And he goes, "Oh, great. I'll call you in a month." And sometimes that's just how films start. But then you sort of go down a deep dive, and I'm like, "Oh my God, like." If I'm going to do a shark film, just don't embarrass yourself in the shadow of Spielberg. And then you start thinking about Jaws, and you're like, well, USS Indianapolis speech was pretty amazing. Nobody's really made that film in an entertaining kind of way. And so, I did 2 minutes of research and realized that there was a true story in Australia's history. In 1942, the HMAS Armidale went down halfway between Darwin and Timor. And I'm like, oh man, they went in the water. They all got eaten by sharks. Most of them never got seen again. Some of them got saved. Like that's a pretty amazing story. So I did a lot of research on that and I was inspired by that story. It's not based on it, but very much inspired by. So it's kind of, loosely inspired by a true story. And then, my grandfather died in the Pacific in World War II. And so I was able to look at his letters and really like look at who he was as a man. And so sort of put some personal family stuff into the film too. And it ended up being quite a personal, journey. This is weirdly one of the most sort of serious films I've ever made, and it just came from this weird phone call from a producer, just going, "Shark film," like. And sometimes these serious epic kind of journeys start with just a simple sort of phone call, where somebody has access to a piece of equipment that we can use. Um, yeah, it's funny how these things start.
I that was one of my questions was that there's such a I mean, I was wondering how you filmed it. So you filmed it on a tank. I was wondering if
We were going to
maybe
shoot it in Malta in a giant outdoor tank and like have it be really realistic. And we actually started pre-production in Malta, but then ironically, Spielberg like rented up all the tanks for Jurassic World, and like
he was
basically
like,
Malta was
nah.
just like, guys, you have to come back next year. And we're like, we can't wait till next year. And then we realized, oh my God, we're gonna have to go back to Australia and shoot this in an indoor studio. And we very quickly realized two things. The first one was like, there's no tank in Australia in a studio big enough to hold our vision. So we would have to build our own tank on an indie budget. So we built this giant 40-meter tank up in Queensland. And we also realized that if we weren't careful, this is just going to look like a crappy studio movie, like it's going to just look fake. And I was like, the only way that we can really pull this off is to go back to like practical old school ways, like the way Hitchcock made Lifeboat, or the way, kind of Murnau shot Nosferatu, on those old sound stages. Just fill the room with fog, like hide the edge of the tank, mostly in fog. And then just keep the audience visually interested by constantly changing the palette. It starts off in the night lit by fire, and then it goes to dusky blue, and then it's these beautiful pink sunrises and then blood red sunsets. And at night, why not put bioluminescence in the water? So you've got this neon green steampunk science fiction look. And so we're just really leaning into the hyper stylization of what you can do in a studio so that, people aren't just looking at it going, this is guys in a room in a bathtub. So yeah, we worked really hard to just pull out all the stops cinematically to keep people visually interested.
No, it looks fantastic, and it definitely it just definitely confused me at sometimes because I did think that you filmed it on like a body of water like out in the Pacific because it looks
Wow.
to me like I was like this is incredibly impressive though, and like you said the colors are just immaculate like throughout, like you can't help but kind of be amazed by like the sunrise and the glow underneath the water, when you're like shaking in your boots that the one guy's gonna get eaten by the shark right then. So
Yeah, it's great to hear that too. And like even though it was shot in a very artificial environment, like it is still seven guys floating in quite a deep body of water. So everything that you see is done practically in water. So in a weird way, it is very practical, but it's also very, a controlled studio environment. Like it's kind of weird to have both at the same time. And the
yeah,
shark, of course, it was very important for me to have practical because there's no better shark than Jaws.
yeah,
And so, we built, these giant half-ton, bits of shark and have them sort of exploding up out of the water and interacting with the actors. And I think like I'm a big one for realism and textural realism when it comes to creatures. And so a lot of the digital sharks I've seen in recent shark films, they don't really work because the water displacement doesn't really work, and like it looks a bit fake, and the sharks are moving too quickly. They're too animated, so you've got that uncanny valley thing happening.
yeah,
But when you've got a creature that weighs a ton with animatronic jaws snapping up and down, and all the water's like rising up in the way that it needs to show the weight of the thing under the surface, there's a bit of kind of realism that happens in the brain that tells you that this is a real object.
yeah.
And that was important for us.
And I mean that just goes into my next question, which is that the shark, I mean, it looks fantastic. And I was just wondering, like, because obviously a Bruce with Jaws, like, did your shark have like a nickname on set or?
Yeah, it's a female because the females get bigger than the males. So this is like a 20-foot female. And so, it's an Australian shark. So we called it Shazza.
Oh, okay.
And every time we need the shark, we're like, "Bring Shazza out." Is Shazza? Has she had her coffee? Is Shazza still in the trailer? All right, bring her around. And yeah, it was very. We had a lot of fun on set with that.
And Jaws, and when putting in connection with the shark movie, Jaws had a
Mm,
lot of issues with its mechanical shark, and so did
yeah,
in another creature feature, Anaconda had a huge issue with its snake.
yeah.
Were there any issues while filming with your shark?
Um,
Any
like
wild
we had a
stories?
long build process and a long test process, and during the test process, like a lot of the time it wasn't working, and I was freaking out, just going, "Oh, we can't have this not work," because with Spielberg, that's like when you adjust the budget for the 70s, like it's effectively $100 million studio film. And so when his shark didn't work, he just filmed for longer. Like he filmed for like, months and months and months out there in Martha's Vineyard, just getting it right and, shooting all this amazing Hitchcockian stuff around the shark. I didn't have time to do that. So if the shark didn't work, I was stuffed. And I was just like, yeah, we'd have to go with a digital fix, which wouldn't look great and would be very expensive. And we just don't have that budget when you're dealing with an independent film. And so when the shark turned up and we were ready to film and it had to work, it just worked. Like sometimes the cinema gods just smile on you, and I mean, I think hats off to the amazing work that Formation FX did, the company that built it. Because man, when I said action and I needed it to look like a shark, it looked like a shark, and I was just like, oh, thank God we have a movie.
Yeah, it looks terrifying. So,
Oh, well,
uh,
thank you for saying that, Connor. I really appreciate that.
I mean, I really mean it because yeah, I'm afraid of three things really as
Mm.
far as animals. I'm afraid of sharks, snakes, and spiders, and you've tackled two of those. So
Yeah, I've done two of those ones. Yeah. I'm
So,
very afraid of spiders. I've got proper arachnophobia. Snakes don't really bother me. I quite like the look of snakes, so I don't think I'd be a very good snake movie director because I think they're
yeah.
kind of cool. But yeah, sharks and spiders, terrified. So yeah, I'm your man when it comes to those monsters.
And I'll just close it out with this. If because as I did mention, you did do a spider film, you did Sting, and now you've
Hmm.
done Beast of War. Is there any other creatures that you'd like to tackle down the road?
Like I might be doing wolves next.
Oh,
Like a mega pack of wolves tearing people apart. But I've also got like a horrific alien, like a body horror in the works.
yeah.
And I've also got like sort of a possession slash witch movie,
Wow.
like a witch possessing a small boy. And witches, there's nothing scarier than an old woman with white eyes coming at you from the darkness. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's the stuff. Anything that's nightmare fuel, I'm up for, man. Yeah. I mean, if a producer comes at me with like a cool monster, like I'm a genre whore. I'm there, immediately.
Yeah. Well, it's not a witch, but whenever I envision in my head like what a witch should look like, I think of the old woman from Drag Me to Hell, and like the
Yep. Yep.
so yeah,
Yep.
terrifying.
I
So
also would love to do like a modern riff on Beowulf, and I thought uh, um, Zach Kreger did a pretty good like version of that in Barbarian. Just like again, just a giant woman with a horrific face and long hair and these saggy breasts, and I'm just like, oh my god, that thing running out and like smashing that guy's head against the wall. I mean,
yeah, it's
good
creepy.
lord, Zach. He's he's one of the best working at the moment. I think he's very talented.
But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated the film, and I am looking forward to encouraging others to go check it out.
Thanks so much, Connor. I really appreciate that.